Welcome to part one of a two-part series on the Power Women of the Trades podcast.
At Relentless Digital, we believe in breaking barriers and driving innovation. That's why we are extremely proud to sponsor the Power Women of the Trades podcast, supporting the voices and success of women in the home service industry. Together, we're creating a future where talent shines, regardless of gender, and diversity thrives. Join our journey at relentless-digital.com and always be relentless in your pursuit of excellence.
This episode of Power Women of the Trades is also brought to you by Forrest Perry of Forrest Perry Digital Marketing. Want to generate more leads for your service business? Trust his team to deliver quality new customer leads and protect your brand online. Check out perrymarketing.com today.
Hello everyone, we want to give a quick shout out to our amazing partner, Rilla, the game changer in the home service industry. Rilla's virtual ride-along software means no more physical ride-alongs. With Rilla, you can coach your team virtually 100 times faster and boost your close sale rates like never before. Don't miss out. Join the movement today and watch your sales soar. Visit RILLA.com/PWT to learn more.
Welcome to Power Women of the Trades podcast. This show is all about breaking barriers and changing the game. Our guests will feature some of today's most successful female entrepreneurs and other advocates of our industry as well. Because if there's one thing we know for sure, female-led entrepreneurship drives change on multiple levels. We want to empower women in the trade industry like you so you can maximize your potential, stay balanced, achieve long-term success, and claim ownership over your life. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Power Women of the Trades podcast with Cassie and Heather. Today we have Josh Crouch from Relentless Digital and Service Mastery
Podcast.
Service Business Mastery. But that's
Service
okay.
Business Mastery.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. So thanks for being on the show, Josh. And also real quick, I just want to say thanks for being a sponsor of Power Women of the Trades. You've been like an early, always mentor, friend, supporter. And so thank you for all that you do for us.
Not a problem at all. I love what you guys are doing. This is back before like some of this stuff was out there, you know, and I talked about it a little bit on the last time I was on, but I brought my wife into the trades because I knew she had the skills, like the people skills, but I was like figuring out what could she do in the trades. And honestly, I needed the help, and she has skills that I don't have. And I think the more we recruit and the more we diversify our force, the better off we're going to be, because then it's not just one way of thinking. We all know what that way of thinking typically has been in the past. So we don't need to really dive into it, but it's more diversity, the more better ideas we get, the better we grow our companies.
Fresh perspective too. You know, somebody that isn't in the trades is going to come in and they're going to have a lot of questions and things that maybe we take for granted, that they're going to ask that question, and then it will make you stop and think.
Well, I'm like the least handy person that I think any of my friends know. Like, there's a reason this picture is not hung and that award down there is sitting on the floor. It's not hung up on the wall yet because I have to hire someone to do that. But I think about things a little differently than maybe someone like Tersh, which is funny because he's going to be editing this podcast. So I talked about him a little bit.
Hey, Tersh.
But he's super, like, anything I need to know, he can fix it, do it. And, you know, which for me was always, I had to rely on my techs and my people that I had because I hope they're telling me the truth. I had to rely on, which made that relationship and that like treating people a certain way, I think I had to rely on. So I couldn't just tell them, no, you're doing that wrong. And we had to collaborate, which I think helped me be a better leader, which I didn't obviously realize at the time. But looking back, it's like, if I don't know, it's actually good because then I get to ask and they get to tell me. And I'm also reading Who Not How right now, which is like reinforcing this whole concept of like, find the right people, don't build it for them, have them build it because they're better at it or they like doing that task. But
we'll hire somebody smarter than you to do the things that you don't know how to do.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. That was the best advice. Probably one of the best pieces of advice that we've ever gotten as in our business is to hire someone smarter than you. And a lot of times as leaders, we don't want to do that because we're not humble and we're the owner or we're the leader here or whatever. And we're supposed to be the smartest advice. And actually, if you are a great leader, you'll realize that that's from the truth. You need to be really smart people on your team.
Well, you can't be the best at everything.
Absolutely
so you find
not.
people that are really good at the things you're not good at and understand what you are good at. And then you can be more valuable to your team, I think. And then you put other people in place in your organization that can take the reins on things that your skills are not as strong in.
It's a big old slice of humble pie.
Yeah. Okay. So anyone listen to the other episode or you don't know who Josh is, Josh, who are you?
So my name is Josh, founder of Relentless Digital. My journey in the trades dates back to 2013. I was an accountant, not a very good one at the time. I always liked numbers, data, statistics, and things that actually worked out pretty well for marketing. But I was like, well, numbers, I'm good at those. I like math. So I thought maybe in accounting. And I did a couple years outside the trades as an accounting, and a small business needed help with their accounting. And I found out they had a lot more issues than just accounting when I joined. But it got me into the trades. I learned a lot. I learned all of the bad lessons very, very, very early. We couldn't pay payroll. We weren't paying withholding taxes. I didn't know any of this. I was writing these checks because the owner told me what to do. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, it's kind of weird. There's no like taxes or anything taken out, but I didn't think anything of it. I was naive and just didn't know what I didn't know, and learned a lot of really valuable lessons. So although I wouldn't probably want to go back and ever do that again, I'm glad it went that way versus like getting like the best of everything. And then everything else was kind of downhill from there. I went from the worst. Now was able to kind of implement things like I ever want to do that. I don't ever want to not pay my suppliers. Like our line of credit was the time I handed a check to the counter person to the time it cashed. That was the only line of credit we could ever get. So like I knew the game of like, if I gave him a check on Friday, I knew it wouldn't clear till like Tuesday and what we could do with that to make sure payroll went through. And I knew stuff I should never have even been thinking about. That's been my journey. I'm not handy. I've always been more on the business marketing side. For many, many years before that, my family had a couple Taekwondo schools. We built and grew those locally. So that was my entry to like local business ownership, but then just joined the trades and kept learning just like every single one of you. I mean, obviously it's funny. I have a post I share on one of my webinars, Cassie, and I shared it. It was some post I made like 5 or 6 years ago about the weather because it's cold where you guys are right now. And it made me think of that. And I see it and it says Cassie Pound and like 900 other people liked your post. And I'm like, man, we were friends back then. Like before we even really knew each other. Yeah. It was kind of interesting.
I've seen that in one of your presentations and because I've seen the screen grab and I'm always like, yes, I'm glad my name was sitting there.
There's some Daniel Putnam's.
Yeah. I'm like, I love that. But so then you jumped into marketing because like now, I guess that's kind of like not weird because I get it, but you were running an HVAC business that you jumped into, new accounting. And then how did you like make the transition into marketing? And then what made you open Relentless?
Yeah. So I had a stint in between 3 stops that I worked at as a territory sales manager. So I had a book of like 45, 50 clients that I would go visit regularly. And 2 of those clients eventually became where I worked. I got back into the trades because honestly, the territory sales side just wasn't really my speed. I feel like it was more for someone that's like ready to retire. It was kind of slow. It just didn't really love it. I love the grind of the contracting space. And so the last client I worked with, he started with a coaching organization. He really needed someone to implement all the stuff that he was learning. And so I worked with him, and being on that part, he had someone that was really good at the bookkeeping. He had a great service manager to manage the field. Like I didn't have to do some of the things I had done at the other stops I was at. So I really got to focus in on technology, Service Titan, Zapier, things like that, implementing those things, and then the marketing. And because we didn't really have a big budget, I was just solely focused in on organic. And it was really interesting to me how to kind of work with that algorithm and make like more. The more we rank, the more leads we get. And honestly, the leads and Service Titan helped me kind of figure this out was because you had a call tracking in place. I'm like, man, we're getting these leads that we get from this source great. They love us. They pay more. They're just awesome. And so it really took me down this deep dive of webinars, ebooks, anything I could get my hands on. But then I also realized that nobody was talking about it. They were talking about websites still. And this is 2019, 2020, when websites were still probably one of the more important sources.
The main source of making your customer.
But I started
I remember that. It's been a ride since 2019. Huge changes.
It's happened, a lot. Like we think about, we're already 2 years or 2.5 years past COVID. Like COVID is in that span. All the Google changes, the AI has come about. But Google Business Profile was like that place. and nobody was talking about it. I started sharing heat maps. Everyone's like, what the hell is a heat map? Like, what is this? I realized that the other big players in space were not talking about it. I knew most of them because I considered working with them from the contractor side, hiring them. So it was born out of that. In the coaching group that we were a part of, there was like 300 business owners in there. They started, a couple of them started, hey, can you do this for me? I was just trying to, just like what I do now online, I was just like, hey, this is working for me. Maybe it works for you.
Yep.
And that's always served me very well. It wasn't the intent. I was just like trying to help some people, and I had some people reach out. My first client was from Canada, of all places. It wasn't even from the US, but that's kind of started everything. That was about 2 weeks before COVID shut the world down.
Yeah, what a crazy time that was too.
So I love that they're talking about that. So Quality uses Relentless, and we've been with you for how long? 3 years? 3-ish years or so. I'll be honest with you, I used to be a marketing company hopper, because a couple things that I have on our agenda to talk about on this episode is the distraction epidemic in the trades industry. I was always chasing this shiny object because on social media, that's what everyone was posting about. And it is I think that's where all my frustration comes from. So, I mean, Josh and I said this episode is going to be so fun because Josh and I are both like really opinionated and say some things with a lot of emotion sometimes. Never, right, Josh?
Sometimes they make us in hot water.
Sometimes. I literally, the other day we had a side group message with some other people, and he said something like, awesome growth there, ladies, or something. And I was like, literally tell Brittany that we have grown so much, because she's normally the one that's like, okay, Josh, shut up, or Cassie or whatever. Like, not really me, but I know there's definitely sometimes, but we get distracted with so much shit on social media. Okay. And so I was Quality followed that for a little bit because of me. And I was like, well, we have to try this marketing company. We have to try that one. And then I learned pretty quickly that not everyone did what they said they could do. And anyways, we ended up with Josh. Josh and Relentless are hands down still the best when it comes to the Google Map pack, right? And the heat maps, like he's talking about. I have that conversation with so many people. I'm like, this is the person for this. And so, but anyways, when you find strong vendors, you got to stick with them and you got to stick it out, because that's the other thing is Josh, it's that time of year. How many conversations have you heard that maybe things aren't going great for that company and it's not your fault at all?
Yeah, easier. It's nice for me that I don't have to have some of those conversations, because some of it I'll go, as soon as I start asking questions, I'm like, we do call tagging and listening and all of these other things. So we have a lot of metrics that I don't know if even you guys do, like Quality does, but a lot of businesses we work with don't. I ask them, I say, how many qualified leads did you have out of your calls? How many of those were booked? How many of those did your technician close something above the service fee? What was your average? And it's like blank stare. They're like,
oh boy.
It's so when we talk about all the distractions, the shiny objects, the thing over here that's going to blow your business up or whatever, you're going to get 100 new install leads in 30 days. If you can't do the basics, it doesn't matter. And Quality is living proof of this. And I don't have the data up, but every time I look at, we're partnered with Searchlight Porting and stuff like that for revenue analytics. So there's a third party that connects all the data sources together and is like, hey, your ROI is this. It's down to the dollar. And you guys are always in the top 3 because your operations are sound. And we do the same work for other clients in other markets. And obviously there's some things that, maybe it doesn't work as well in certain markets, or there's a bigger metro or whatever, but it almost always, not always, because there are marketing companies that suck and we know who some of those are. And we see those posts blowing up like crazy, but it comes down to how good the business does with the leads they have. I know what it sounds like from a contractor side. It's like, they're just always deflect, but it's the truth. I've been on that side. And the reason we were so effective at professional services, I was not only the person in charge of the marketing, I was also in charge of the operations. So I did both and I saw both. And so when we had a lead that, or if I saw job notes that we didn't follow up with, those things became an item for me to follow up with. And we always were doing those things just instinctually, because I didn't we never spent money on paid ads, and we grew 50, 60% year over year with like a 2.5% marketing budget. Now, we weren't a $10, $12 million company where we would have had to put some gasoline on the fire, but we were a $4 or $5 million company. So we weren't tiny. And they ended up getting acquired in March of this last year. So it was big enough for somebody to want to acquire them. But there's so many basic things. Contractors starting out, and I know there's a lot of them getting that 0, 3 or 4 million, kind of that still smaller, where you got a lot of hats going on. You don't have specific people for specific roles. The phone doesn't get answered. Person on the other end of the line internally, it may be the wife, it may be someone that's not trained real well, maybe even the owner, whoever that is. Hello? Like they just don't even know how to answer the phone. And then they're talking about, oh, I gotta write for AI search and I gotta do that. No.
Most businesses' online presence is boring. And by being boring, they're losing out on potential sales and customers. Being interesting and exciting is what draws customers in and gets them to buy from you. But it's hard to be interesting online when you're focused on running your business and taking care of your customers. It doesn't have to be this way. We have the key to unlocking the solution to your problem. Key Heart Marketing can help take your business from boring to brilliant on social media. We can vouch for them. They run our podcast socials. If you want to have a strong social media presence that allows customers to know, like, and trust you, connect with Key Heart Marketing at keyheartmarketing.com.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that as like those are the shiny objects, right? We go to a conference and we see someone's here and they're talking about AI or they've watched your webinars or they've heard about it, and that's fine. Like learn AI. There's a lot of stuff that's amazing with that. Heather and I, every single day, I blow my own mind with ChatGPT and the things that I have that thing do for me, right? However, if you can't answer your freaking phone, you probably don't need to spend your time learning AI right now.
Yeah, and
you're going to have to like calm down here and set a process here first, because if not, then all that automation that you're doing here is funneling where to a broken process that's doing nothing for you.
I think you have to have the foundation built. I tell people this all the time when they're like, well, we want to add this and we want to add that. And I'm like, well, until you have a strong foundation built, adding to it is just going to take away from your business, not add to it. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, Josh, you provide all this data to these contractors, but they can't answer the questions you're asking them. If you're not paying attention to the metrics every day and using that information to run your business, it's pointless. You're not getting the return on the investment that you're putting into the marketing. And I think that Kaylee does a fabulous job. We talk about it every day.
Mm-hmm. You have to talk about it.
If we have the calls and we're not closing the sales, then we need to address it that day, not a month later when the financials are done and we're like, how did we screw up this?
Why did I miss the mark? You don't know until you miss the mark, right?
But if you're looking at it every day and you're seeing a trend over a period of 3 to 5 days, you know that you've got a problem you need to address before the end of the month. But if that foundation isn't set up to have the people in place to fix it or to address it, then you're not going to see the return on the marketing investment. I don't know how you could.
Right.
Well, it's basic things like, most companies, even when they start out, have some sort of answering service or something, and they have no idea what their booking rate is. Mm-hmm. And they're leaving it up to the answering service or maybe an offshore CSR or whatever the cheap route is, because they didn't want to hire someone, and they have no idea how to track booking rate, or the person taking the calls is tracking the booking rate, and they don't have like a third party or a way to like automatically understand if that's actually real or not.
Well, and that's another big comment.
Is it really 80, 85%, or is it more like 50? Our data shows, now granted, to be fair, our data shows like HVAC companies about 52.5%, but we also don't know, like if somebody says, hey, I got to go talk to my manager and then get back to you, we don't have visibility into that call. So it's probably a little higher than that, but it's still, our top performers are typically around 70-ish%. Mm-hmm. And that's with us listening to every call.
If you have somebody answering the phone and you don't have a consistent process for how to qualify the call as to whether it counted or not, or which ones are you going to dismiss, then you're going to get inconsistent data there too.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is especially when you start getting more than one CSR, they're not trained the same. They don't have the same flow of the call. There's no SOP or process of like, do this, then this, and then you hear, and it just becomes, you start having everyone doing everything the way that they want to do it, and the results are not going to be consistent.
And then you add a third-party call center into it, and then that's a whole other ballgame. And we all know it, because I think one of the biggest questions that I've gotten over the last 5 years is, who are you using for your third-party call center? We hate ours.
Everybody hates it.
Everybody hates a third-party call center.
The new shiny object right now is AI that answers the phone for you, which is fine. But someone at some point, a live human body is going to this customer's house, right? Or facilitating, if anything, they're just facilitating the revenue, right? And if you don't have some type of process for everything that's going through there, even if the robot answers the phone for you, what happens next? And that's where I think I would hate to be a marketing company, respectfully, Josh. I think about that all the time, because I'm like, right now's the time where you all suck. You don't. Okay. No one clipped that section.
Believe me, you mentioned before this, Eric Thomas, he's a good friend of mine. We always joke, we can't wait for May and June and July, because we all look like freaking geniuses.
And they're so good.
All that work we've been doing has been there the whole time. It's just, and that is the challenging thing. Like, I mean, right now, there's a big cold snap in most of the country where I'm at. It's still 60, 70 degrees. But plus it's the holidays. Nobody's got any money to spend. There's a transition in the White House. There's just like a million things that are like the interest rates are finally starting to come down. There's a lot of things that are impacting a lot of things. And find it, like, as soon as I asked, like, hey, have you reached out to your existing customers? Again, blank stare. Oh, no. Should I be doing that? I'm like,
Start.
How many outbound phone calls are you making? How many, we just had our holiday party this last week.
which y'all look fabulous, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We were talking about that this morning. Like we started that a few years ago, and our holiday party is kind of like a glam thing. And just it like really started with the office staff wanting to dress up, all the girls. But now it's like our plumbers and HVAC techs and installers, they're showing up in suits that they went and bought. One guy had like he had some fur, like what?
Shiny shoes, Cassie and his shiny shoes.
Yeah. And it's like, they've evolved this, not us. They always say, what are we supposed to wear? And I'm like, whatever you want to, that makes you comfortable. But we had such a good time with that. But I totally lost my train of thought.
So the holidays are over. We're talking about revenue and things. And we saw a record sale. I'm flying in from Oregon to Oklahoma for this holiday party. And
we had a record sales day.
My husband was sitting next to me, and he most of the time does not travel with me. But I'm going, oh my God, there's another sale. 28,000, like 29,000, 14,000. And like every time, like my phone kept going off, and he's like, holy cow. And I go, yeah, they're having a record sales day.
It wasn't cold. We were outbounding. We were doing this. That was what I was saying is at that holiday party, I got to announce that like our call center team took 116,000 phone calls. They facilitated 116,000 phone calls last year. Okay. So 60,000 of those were inbound. They made 55,000 outbound phone calls.
That's insane.
That's insane. Okay.
That's a lot of phone calls.
55,000 outbound phone calls. Not a call center. The in-house team at this company made 55,000. We don't even have 55,000 customers in our database, guys. Like they made multiple attempts to the same people, right? And
aren't you worried that you're going to overbug your customers though?
No, because we've got enough. You filter through, right? Like there's so many excuses, and you have to have a strategy. But it's like your marketing company, Josh, can get you up to the plate with a customer. But if you don't know how to swing the bat, you're wasting his time, your time, and the customer's time.
And if you're not analyzing that, like Josh was saying, and you were talking about in the beginning, if you don't understand your call metrics or the KPIs for your calls that are coming in or your outbounding calls, you can't manage the marketing that's being done on your behalf. So everybody hates our marketing person, especially in February, but it's really not usually the root of the problem. If there is a problem.
It's really not. And like I said, we as a team, we don't love telling contractors that. We rely on the data. Now there have been times when our performance wasn't up to snuff. We had to figure out a different strategy or a different way to go about it, which is totally fine. But instead of always pointing the blame or trying, because we've had multiple calls where people are like, and we filter them out at this process of like, if they've been with 6 marketing companies in the last 2 years, that's not a good fit for us. Like, because we want someone that's a partner, because our strategies work long term. So if they're just like dipping their toe in a little bit, this isn't really the decision. You're just hopping to the next one, hoping you're going to, strike gold. There is no gold. There's no gold. I promise you, there is no gold.
There's no silver bullet. There's no gold. But that's like, how do we avoid this shiny object syndrome? And that's the thing is like, Josh is a professional, right? Like Josh, you're marketing right now for yourself, and you're the branding for yourself and for the podcast and for Relentless. You guys are doing an amazing job. That's his job, right? Like he is marketing his business on a regular basis, and somebody is going to see that and be like, oh yeah, Josh, now I need to go try Relentless. But here's the deal. If you jump to Relentless, and I hope you do, because I stand firm that he's the best, but if you jump to Relentless, if you weren't doing anything with the other team, Josh he's not a miracle worker.
It's not like he has the magic potion that's going to like, oh, we just joined and now all of a sudden the phone's ringing. You have to analyze those metrics. And I think that's a big thing that
can make the phone ring
probably
too.
One of your biggest headaches is what to do, but if your client doesn't understand how to understand their own metrics, it's hard to have a conversation around, where are the issues if they are becoming issues.
Oh, absolutely. And that's like,
I know we're going off on the tangent.
We are.
Yeah, no, it's great because I think sometimes, and to be fair, a lot of marketers haven't been actually in the trades. So my first year at Iron Farm was 2013. It was the coldest winter in 30 years in Wisconsin. Literally, I remember it very, very, very well. We had to turn off the phones because at that point we didn't have an answering. I didn't even know answering service existed at that point in my career. That's how naive I was. And we would have have to turn the phones off because we'd have like 40 or 50 voicemails, jot down all the notes from the voicemails, figure out who we were getting back to. And then we had to do the same thing at the end of the day. It was that cold. Like we had like a 3-week snap where it wasn't above 0. And the next year, right before Christmas, I remember the first time ever having to make outbound phone calls because we were dead.
Yeah.
Just like when it's mild here and it's before Christmas and between Thanksgiving and Christmas, which is normal. That's a very normal thing to happen. And I hated doing outbound calls. So like I feel for like it's not easy. So make 55,000 outbound phone calls. That's not an easy thing to do. But with practice and repetition, you also get better and filtering out like, hey, they're not saying no because of me, they're saying no just because they don't want something or they don't want the offer, or they don't want to move forward with the estimate. And getting over that, I think, is really helpful. So when we tell our clients to outbound, I literally physically have done this myself on the phone, which was not something I enjoy doing at all. I'm just not, it's not my personality type. So like when SMS, text message, email became a lot more prevalent, obviously email's been around for a while, but SMS, I tried this when I was at professional services a couple times. I got met with a lot of FUs because this was like, as things change, the dynamic of the customer changes. We're a lot more familiar with getting text, like everyone gets text messages now. If you don't want something, just say stop and it goes away.
Yeah.
But it is an extraordinarily effective and fast way to get in front of customers that may need your services.
Yeah.
And you guys, and I point back because I made the point about you guys being one of our top 3 for as far as ROI on our services. You guys know when that time period is, and you come to us ready with an offer, and our team takes the list, puts the offer together, does the automation stuff on the back end, the stuff that you guys don't want to do or don't, whatever it is, and we launch it for you guys. You guys answer the messages and it works great. You guys are always prepared. And I think that's the biggest thing is we're such a reactive industry. Something happens. And, I mean, think about it. Customer stuff breaks, we go fix it. Our customers are not very proactive either. So it's the same thing like, oh, it's slow today. Well, you should have known that 3 days ago or a week ago, or you should have looked at the weather forecast and know it was going to be slow. Like we have to start training ourselves to be proactive and look at those things and not just run from one thing to the next all the time with like a chicken with her head cut off.
This has been Power Women of the Trades. Like what you hear so far? Leave us a review at Apple and make sure to listen to our other episodes wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.